Welcome to Careless Coder. Today we will be modding a Game Boy. I finally have my own Game Boy again after 27 years. Motherfucker! I recently bought two broken Game Boys from Marktplaats, the Dutch Craigslist. And this one actually just works. The only thing was that the contrast was all the way down. So I want to keep this for myself, except it has some what they call barnacles. So I want to replace the case and I want to do the Bivert and Backlight mod on this one and keep this for myself. The other one, they tried the Bivert mod and it's a bit of a horrible mess. I'm in the process of repairing it. The LCD is actually broken there, so I will replace that with an IPS panel. That will be the next video. But let's do the Bivert and the Backlight mod on this one so I can show you guys, and then I will own my own Game Boy again after 27 years, and then one that I can play in the dark. So this used Game Boy has some barnacles. Here you can see them. Those are actually screws that were too long that were wedged in there. So I will replace the whole case. I have a replacement case here, and I will also perform the Bivert mod. The Bivert mod just inverts the image, which gives more contrast. Here we're opening the case. You need a Phillips head screwdriver and also those Y screwdrivers. And I also decided to remove the main board so I have easy access to do the mod. There's not much to it, is it? I love the Game Boy. It's a cool design. I apply flux to pins 6 and 7 because we need to lift those up. And I use some soldering braid to suck up that solder and use an X-Acto knife to wedge those two pins upwards so that they are free from the PCB. Be careful, you could lift up those two pads. If that happens, it's not a big deal, you're not going to use them, but I rather do not if I need to ever revert it. So here I push back in place, and the other one, pin 7, come on, hold it up until the solder sets, and there we go. Then we resolder those other pins left and right because we may have taken off some solder. So I rather want to be sure that they're actually properly set. We put the Bivert mod in place. We align those holes with the solder pads and the pads for our pins. We apply flux. That is necessary here, otherwise you don't get really to it. And we flood those holes with solder, making in essence contact with the pad underneath. That's where the VCC and the pin data comes from. That needs to be soldered again. Yeah, that is nice. With some wire wrap wire, I connect the ground to the Game Boy and to the Bivert mod. Bend all the leads in place, and here it is. Nicely done. Now I assemble everything and test to see if indeed the image is inverted. Otherwise there's no use of continuing yet. So it's now inverted, so that is good. So now we need to actually remove the screen and invert that. But this is a good start. The Backlight mod is basically an LED panel that you just slide underneath the screen after you have removed the foil. Here I removed the two tiny little screws from the screen's ribbon cable. So we have just that little bit more of space to peel off the backing layers, and that is the most tedious part. I use an X-Acto knife to get underneath those two stickers. It's a polarized layer and this reflector. And I try to lift up a little corner so I can actually grab hold to it and pull it off. And this is the dangerous part. If you put too much force on the LCD, you could break it. I have a broken Game Boy that I bought in the same batch that actually tried this mod and broke it. So I will replace that with an IPS panel in another video. And here you see that the polarized filter, that's the yellow layer, is not coming along. So I need to heat it up. I put my rework station to 100 degrees centigrade and just heat up that sticker to make the glue less sticky, and just proceed. And this whole process took me 20 minutes. This was the worst ever, to be honest. Usually it's not as painful as it was in this case, but yeah. Jesus. Like I said, it was tedious. Now we need to test it to see if we didn't break the LCD, especially since I needed to put more force on it than I would have liked. So I get the polarized filter. There's still a protective layer on it, so I can handle it with my fingers. Otherwise you get a fatty result on it. And yes, I saw a nice little bar, so we can proceed. We need to wipe the whole thing off with some IPA, especially the layer underneath where the stickers were. Just thoroughly clean it. And we slide the LED panel in. Now there are two sides. There is one side with dots and one diffuse side. If you see the dots, then you need to flip it, and you can flip it after you soldered it. We also need to make sure that we put in the polarized filter. Then it turns yellow, then you have the right side. Otherwise the image is still inverted. If it is, then just turn it 90 degrees and it should be right. Now this is the 150 ohm resistor. You really wouldn't need it, but I put it in anyways, just to limit the current to the LED panel. And we solder it to that big capacitor underneath, the plus to the plus side, and of course the negative to the negative side. I need to buy wire strippers. There we go. Yes, nicely done. Now let's see. I have put the polarized filter in place. I removed also the protective layers. And there you see it. Nice. So again, if it is inverted, just rotate the polarized filter 90 degrees. But you see it has this yellow hue, then you know it's the right setup. Since we're here anyways, let's clean the pads. 30 years of gunk. So now we assemble the case. Sorry, the camera wasn't aimed properly. But yeah, it's just dropping in the buttons and the membranes. And give it a nice polish. This is the last time you get to it before we put in the nice glass screen. The original Game Boys came with a plastic visor or lens. And I bought the glass one. It's more scratch resistant. And look at that contrast. This is nice. You can now even play it in the dark, which you could never do. God, I love Tetris. Look at how crisp it is. I love the Bivert mod. I did several for people, and now I got my own. Looks nice. There you have it. A nice modded Game Boy with the Bivert mod that really enhances the contrast and the backlight. It's so incredibly crisp, and you can now play it at night, something that we could never do with the old Game Boys. Now the other one is still in repair. I reran the wires so I can put the IPS panel in, so that will be in the next video. And I also bought a Game Boy Advance. I never owned that. I love that machine, which I will drop in an IPS panel as well, so you will see that video as well. So I hope you learned something, and see you in the next one.